of interreligious dialogue. So interreligious wedding is, of course, a very, very important level. I think it should be taken for itself, because it's not just like being friends, and it's not just like being hired in a company. So I think this should be taken into consideration as a specific level with specific problems and joys. So these are 6 different settings that I've identified in my experience about where some dialogue can happen. And it's extremely important to have them in mind when we will talk about discussing faith with Muslims, because what setting are we talking about? As I just told you, at the level 1, official interreligious encounters, they simply don't talk about faith. They don't. The Pope does not talk about the Christian faith with Sheikh al-Azhar. He doesn't. Because it's not the point. The point is not to discuss about their faith. Maximum, they would speak about humanity and values, but never would talk about what makes their own faith specific. At an academic level, it's more complicated, because you could talk about faith, but on a scientific historical point of view. Like, for example, the Muslim creed and the evolution of the Muslim creed and the Christian creed and what Christians believe and what the different churches believe. So it would not be a testimony of your own faith. It would be a historical study of what faith has been like and what it is like in different communities. When it comes to joint projects or neighborhood encounters, it is almost impossible to talk about faith unless you are friends. And this is the core of the 5th level, is to be able, at last, to be able to talk about faith and discuss and exchange about what we believe deeply. I would not try to do it at the other levels. I would not try to talk faith at an official level, an academic level, at work, or just with my neighbors. I would just don't do it. Of course, if I was married with a Muslim woman, I hope I would be able to talk about faith with her, because that's what couples do. So speaking of faith, of what we deeply believe, I think belongs to level 5 and 6, not to the first 4 levels. And this is also very important to understand, because if you don't understand that, you'll be frustrated. Like, for example, if you bring a priest and an imam at a lecture and you listen to them, you get frustrated because they don't speak of faith. They won't. It's impossible. So they won't speak of faith. They would talk of, history, culture, events, rites, festivals, but they won't talk about the faith itself. So you would feel frustrated and you would go back home and believe that it's impossible, or that there's nothing related to faith in interreligious dialogue. And you believe as a person that it's the most important thing for you. So you feel frustrated. But if you keep this diagram in head and these 6 different settings, then you remember what I said someday in quarantine in Abu Dhabi, that friendship and marriage, friendship is the true level to be able to speak about faith. And if you want to share your faith with someone, even in prairies, we don't share our faith with our brothers so easily. Sometimes we keep for ourselves so deep feelings that we have about our own faith. So why would we talk about that with, foreigners, people we don't even know? So I think faith is something very special that it's not easy to share with like anyone unless you're friends. So this is one first big distinction I would like to bring on the table. 6 different settings for dialogue. And please do not get frustrated if you cannot discuss about everything in the 6 levels. You just can't, and it's life. This is one thing. The second thing I would like to bring on the table is 4 different dimensions of truth. Okay, so we have, when we talk of truth, and as Dominicans, we do talk of truth a lot, sometimes we're not completely aware. So I just want to tell you, I'm not a philosopher. I've seen that some of you are currently studying philosophy. I'm not a philosopher. These distinctions are just based on my own experience, and I share them with you. Please don't take them for a dogma. Please do whatever you want with them. It's just my way of approaching truth, especially in an interreligious setting. So I've identified like 4 different dimensions of truth that are completely different. And if we don't have this in mind, just like the 6 levels, we will be very frustrated. So let's go through them. The first type of truth, so first dimension of truth, is dogmatic truth, like God is one. This is a dogma, like you can't prove it. Or Jesus is the Son of God. If you say Jesus is the Son of God, you can't prove this except by believing in it. Or Muhammad is a prophet. This is a dogmatic truth. It can't be proven scientifically or historically. Your feelings may tell you something different, but it is still a dogmatic truth that millions of people hold. Or, for example, life is a cycle, like samsara. So life is a cycle. Like, I don't believe this. I don't believe life is a cycle, but I know that many people do, and I have to respect it. I can't prove it. We can't prove reincarnation. We can't prove incarnation in the first place. We can't prove the prophecy of Muhammad, and we can't prove that Jesus is resurrected. We just can't prove it. So this is exactly the type of dogmatic. It doesn't make it wrong. It makes this truth dogmatic. It's a very specific type of truth. And in our lives, we have lots of dogmatic truths. Second type of truth is scientific, historical truth. Like if you say water boils at 100 Celsius, this is just a scientific truth. It's the definition of what point you could even consider water boils at 100 the dogmatic truth, because it gives definition of Celsius degree at some point. If you say, for example, Sanskrit is an Indo-European language, this is a scientific truth. What does it mean? It means that unless proven differently, unless some more evidence is brought on the table, unless we find otherwise, then so far, this is what science holds. But if you say Muslims believe in one God, this is a scientific truth. It's a historical truth. You can't deny that. Muslims do believe in one God. It doesn't mean that you agree. It doesn't mean that you think there is one God. It doesn't mean that you're a Muslim. It just means that historically, scientifically, it is just fact. Muslims believe in one God, just like Christians believe that Jesus is the Son of God. As a Christian, I can say this sentence: Muslims believe in one God. I can say it. It doesn't make me less of a Christian. And anybody can say, Muslims included, that Christians believe that Jesus is the Son of God. So you see the difference between the dogma and the science. The dogma would be Jesus is Son of God. But the scientific statement would be Christians believe that Jesus is the Son of God. So scientific historical truths are very powerful because everybody can endorse them. We can share them, we can discuss them, we can refine them, we can argue as scholars. We can argue about them and discuss about what it means. We can refine what it means, and etc. And so they are extremely strong, but they are also extremely weak because unless proven differently, they are right. Like the case of Sanskrit as an Indo-European language, I don't know, linguistic theory may evolve And in some years, a new linguistic family will be discovered, and people will realize or consider that Sanskrit should be attached to this new family, not to Indo-European languages. So scientific truth is the strongest and the weakest at the same time. It is the strongest because it does not rely on your beliefs, but it is the weakest because it relies on facts and proofs that can change. When you find a new manuscript of the Bible, it could change the vision we have of the Johannic communities. If we find a new archaeological site with Essenes, for example, that is not linked to Qumran, and then we can explore the Essenes communities in ways that are new and that make new science. So this is a second type of truth. The third type of truth is my own feelings. Like if you say, I hate Muslims, it is neither right nor wrong. It's what you feel, and I can't deny it. And I have to take it into consideration. It is your feeling, it is your truth. This kind of truth, you only can say. If you say, I don't feel the presence of Jesus in the Eucharist, you still can be a Christian and believe at the level of the dogma that Jesus is present in the Eucharist. And as a Christian, you believe it is your dogmatic truth. But at the level of your feelings, you just don't feel it. And it doesn't make you less of a Christian. And if we go to the scientific truth, if you take some consecrated host, and you put it between a microscope, it is just like any regular bread. The physical nature of the host didn't change. So at the level of the dogma, this host is the body of Christ, and you believe it. At the level of science, it's just bread, wheat, and water. And at the level of your feelings, you may feel, sometimes you feel the presence of Jesus, and sometimes you don't. So it is, and it doesn't make the scientific truth different. It doesn't change the dogmatic truth. It doesn't change what you believe, but your feelings are something different. And then there is a last level, which would be the symbolic, cultural truth, something that as a culture we share. For example, if you say white is the color of mourning, this is not true in my culture, but there are some cultures where it is true. In my culture, black is the color of mourning. So when I see black, I feel and I see mourning and I see sadness and I see, but in other cultures, it's white. This is a truth that is bigger than my own feelings. It's not a dogma, it's not science, it's not feelings, it's something that is shared by my society, my community, the people where I am. So we do have lots of these truths shared among communities. The number 8 brings luck, like, okay, in what culture? I know in China it does, in France or in Egypt it doesn't. So this kind of cultural symbolic truth is also important to acknowledge. It is there, it is very much there. It is active in societies, and you can't deny it. If you interact with Muslims, you have to take and to keep in mind these 4 different levels of truth. Like, for example, if a Muslim tells you, Muhammad is a prophet, why don't you recognize it? What he tells you is a dogmatic truth. It's not scientific, it's not he's not expressing his feelings, and it's not speaking of a symbolic truth, cultural truth, it's just expressing a dogma. So you want to answer at the level of the dogma. If you answer at a different level, you would not understand one another. Then if the Muslim tells you that the Quran was revealed to the Prophet on that day, and we have manuscripts, and then he speaks at a scientific level, historical level, then we have facts and we have dates and we can check this data. We can never check the data that Muhammad is a prophet, but we can check the data that the oldest manuscript of the Quran has this and that lesson, or that in the sources Muhammad is quoted or not quoted, etc. In terms of feelings, the guy can tell you, I love Islam. Okay, good for you. I mean, you love Islam. It's a different type of statement, okay? And he can also tell you, I fear for you because you're a Christian and you're going to go to hell. So I would love you to become a Muslim, not to go to hell. The guy is simply explaining his feelings, and you should receive them as a feeling, not more, not less. And it's moving, you know, when someone tells you, I fear for you because I know that as a Christian, you're going to go to hell. If someone tells you this, then the guy is expressing their feelings. Okay, and can receive this as just feelings. He's not expressing a dogma. He's not expressing a scientific truth. He's just expressing his feelings. And you have to answer at the same level. Thank you for your feelings. I feel moved by your feelings. Thank you so much, etc. So I think this is important also to keep in mind that if we have only one definition of truth, then we get confused because we think that truth would clash with truth, but they don't. Truth does not clash with truth. Truth is truth. So it is okay to say God is one, Jesus is Son of God, Muhammad is a prophet. As dogmas, it is perfectly fine, but you don't share all of these dogmas. If you speak of a dogma, you can always, by adding some reference, transform the dogma into a scientific statement. Like if the guy tells you Muhammad is a prophet, you can say, yes, I know that Muslims believe that Muhammad is a prophet. And you can say this with no problem. And you could say Christians do not believe that Muhammad is a prophet, and that's fine. I mean, you're not hurting anyone's feelings if you express a scientific truth that for Christians, Muhammad is not a prophet. It's okay. And also, you could even say that my feelings tell me that Muhammad has some kind of prophetic mission, but it's my feeling. It's not my dogma. It's not what my church wants me to believe. It's not history. I'm just expressing my feelings. Then if you go to we have many topics to discuss with Muslims, many topics. I will focus more on friendship because I believe it's the best level to talk of faith. When we speak of religion, we can define religion as many things. Religion has many components: creed and history and rites and texts and traditions and lots of dimensions that make a religion a religion. And faith, I believe, is at the intersection of all these levels, all these dimensions, with my own personal history that makes it my faith. Faith is not creed. Faith is not history. Faith is not just rites and texts and traditions. Faith is what I deeply have in me. My Christian faith is at the intersection of all that and my personal history, my psychology, my own experiences, my age. My faith changes when I get older, when I make new experiences, when I meet new people. So faith is something extremely special, extremely deep, and it touches like every dimension of our lives. And once more, it's not easy to share it like with someone you don't know. Do you share your faith with your parents? Do you share it with your brothers? Do you share it with your colleagues? I don't think you do. Or maybe you do at some very specific and specific moments where you feel completely at ease and confident, and when you feel a deep connection. And that faith, people would like it to be discussed with Muslims on the public space. No, it is not desirable. I think it's not good to just share what makes your faith so personal to share it with someone you don't know? So unless you get to talk to a Muslim friend, I would not recommend sharing about your faith. So why discuss with Muslims about our faith? Because this is the most intimate and the most personal relation you can have when you talk with someone. Speaking about your faith is not just like speaking about the weather or speaking about your education. It's speaking of something extremely deep. And why do it? Because we want to share with friends what we have at the dearest. And it makes us human. And why share it? That's the real question. Why share it with someone of a different religion? You would think, and it's normal, you would think that it's easier to share your faith with a Christian friend. And it is much easier because we have so much in common, even among brothers, and we know this in the same priory, among brothers, we have different approach to the same religion, even to the Dominican life, to the Catholic Church. We have different visions of what preaching is, of what God is, of what, who Jesus is. So it is already difficult to discuss it with a Christian fellow. So why do it with someone of a different religion? And this is the very question that I'm back to. It is an adventure. Like if you open your heart to don't do it with someone who is not a friend. If you open your heart with a friend who shares nothing of what you strongly believe and what makes you you, you enter into complete new world. And this is what I want to be a testimony of, like, opening one's heart to someone who does not believe in anything you believe. It's risky. It is definitely risky, but it brings a lot of joy, because you realize what makes us human, how different we are, how rich the love of God is. If you're able to, if your Muslim friend or your non-believer friend or your Sikh friend shares their faith with you, if you're friend enough to do this, you will discover a world that you've never seen. And why haven't you never seen this world? Because nobody shares about their faith. It's not something you share with people, ordinary people. So it's an adventure. It's an exploration. And it is even more an exploration of your own faith. Like when you listen to your Muslim friend talk to you about Muhammad, about the Quran, about Sharia, about the way he reads the Quran, about what he feels during prayer, about you will discover, and these are difficult to share. I've been lucky to have like many Muslim friends. I was not so, I didn't have so many conversations about faith with them at that deep level. Usually most conversations would be at a dogmatic or historical level, like, gathering information about what they say, about their religion, about their rites, how they pray, etc. But sometimes a window opens on the heart, and then you see how God works outside the church, how God loves every single human as far as they can be from the Catholic Church, how God takes care of them. And if you're friend enough to these people, they will give you and they will show you wonders about what God does in their heart. And this is absolutely fantastic. Once you reach this point, the refinement, the mercy of God, the depth of his love, the generosity that he has to share with everyone, whatever their beliefs, whatever their religion and traditions. This is absolutely fascinating. And now we have reached a level in the discussion that can never be addressed by religious leaders, by academics, by neighbors, by colleagues. It simply can't. And if you want to go into this, which I strongly encourage you to do, it can only begin with a friend. It can only begin with a friend. And that friend will take you to explore inner lands that you would never imagine. I thank you for your attention, and please don't hesitate if you have any question, if you have anything that I said that is completely weird to you, or if you want to listen to more or anything. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, dear John, for giving us this wonderful and thought-provoking lecture. And, you know, you spoke about different settings for dialogue and also different dimensions of truth. And you emphasize on the friendship, the basis of exploring the faith of the other, and also sharing one's faith only to those who are friendly to us or those who are very dear to us. So thank you very much. I'm sure the brothers and sisters have benefited from this lecture. Now I would request the brothers or sisters, if you have any questions or clarifications to make, you are free to do so. If you have questions, you can just unmute the audio and you can just put your question forth.
John, I am Prasad George. I have a little difficulty with Quran, with verse chapter 9:5, which speaks about violence. And it seems dialogue with Islam is difficult with these verse about violence, which says, wherever you find pagans, you must fight them, seize them, and kill them. So how would you reconcile that verse with the dialogue, with the possibility of dialogue? Also, when you look around, seeing there is so much of violence against people of other faiths practiced really in Islam. I understand even Christianity had been very violent, and violently we had been promoting our religion in the past. But that is a move away from what is in the scripture, at least in the New Testament. Jesus does not ask us to be violent or to destroy or kill those who do not believe. In fact, Jesus said, contrary to that, he spoke about against that. So how would you justify these verses? Can you explain this? To me, that stands as a very, very difficult verse when you are talking about dialogue.
Thank you, Father Prasad, for your question. I think there are many ways to approach it. The first one is that sometimes as Christian, we take refuge in the New Testament and we tend to ignore the old one. And it is very practical because we can very easily say, Jesus was peaceful. Well, so we practically reject the Old Testament and all the violence that was in it, because we say, no, our religion is practically the New Testament. And this is a heresy to reject the Old Testament. It is a heresy. So when we quote the scriptures, we have to take the scriptures as a whole, not just the New Testament. Also, you have in Acts of the Apostles, when this couple who didn't bring their money to the community were cursed, and the fire of the heaven fell down on them, and they were killed on the spot. This kind of verse we tend to ignore, because we focus and we try to reduce our religion to just Jesus, so we can be sure that Jesus, okay, at least Jesus is not violent, which is not the case. Jesus when he was in the temple and chasing the sellers away. So I think it is not right to get the image that the New Testament is peaceful, Jesus is peaceful, and so Islam is not. I think it's not fair. When Jesus says that he came on earth not to bring peace, but to bring fire, no, this is a spiritual verse. This is a spiritual verse. I mean, it's never been intended when he says, I'm here to divide families, I will divide the families, the father against the son and the mother against, no, this is spiritual. This is spiritual. So why don't we do this with the Quran? No, the Quran is literal. It's not spiritual. That's unfair. It's just unfair. Because when you talk with Muslims, they would tell you this. They would tell you, you are a hypocrite. Because the gospel, in the New Testament and the Old Testament, it's full of violence everywhere. But you don't see it because you just reduce the message of Jesus to the Beatitudes. And that's it. And you say, this is the true Christianity. Who said that? I think we have first to endorse the dark side of, as you said, our history, but also of our scriptures. How many Jews were killed during World War II because of the verse of St. John that the Jews are cursed? And we did it. Like, as Christians, we burnt thousands and thousands of Jews because we thought they killed the Messiah. And it is in the gospel that they should be cursed for generations and generations. So I think it's the right way out of this discussion is not to say that Jesus is peaceful and Islam is, and the Quran has violent verses. The path out of this is to have a more comprehensive view of everything that is in our tradition, good and bad, that everything which is in our scriptures, clear and unclear, and also to make the same benevolence that we have when we read the gospel, that of course, when Jesus says that you should cut your hand off, it doesn't mean it literally. This same benevolence we have when we read the gospel, we should apply to the Quran, at least for the sake of our Muslim friends. So the question is not, it should be addressed to a Muslim, like, how do you read this verse? And how do Muslims read this verse? This and the others. I mean, you have many such violent verses in the Quran. So the question is not, the question becomes, how do you as a Muslim read these verses? And what they tell you is that this is linked to history. This was a time when Islam was in danger as a religion, and that the community of believers, of the first community of Muslims, had to protect themselves because they were under attack and they were being persecuted by the surroundings pagans, and that they should just, the fight was so serious that they had to kill them all. This kind of interpretation. And your Muslim friend would tell you, of course, this verse does not apply to today. Of course, it doesn't. just like verses in the Old Testament or in the New Testament, we just don't apply because we think they don't apply. We think they are linked to history, they are not eternal. So we do already have this in our tradition. We have many examples of that in our tradition. So what I think is unfair is to consider that to take only the good out of our own scriptures with a very, very benevolent reading and to suppose the worst in the Quran. You see what I mean? This, I think, is unfair.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, I want to. Hello?
Hello?
Brother John, thank you so much for your very thought-provoking lecture. I wanted to ask, you spoke largely about sharing of faith on the level of friendship. On a very, I thought that you were, I understood that you were speaking about a very subjective kind of faith, like what I perceive to be dogmatic truth or scientific truth or feelings. But then there is an objective content of faith as well. For example, when the magisterium of the church hands down certain things as the truth. So is interreligious dialogue possible on this objective level of faith, and what purpose would it aim towards? Thank you.
Thank you, brother, for the question. What you call the objective level of truth, I call the dogmatic truth. This is what I call the dogma. I mean, it's things that you, objective faith is the content of the faith, the objective content as defined by the dogma, as you said. At that level, it is the kind of dialogue that is possible is to clarify what we say. For example, it's very common that Muslims would ask you, what do you mean by Trinity? And why do you say you believe in one God when your God is trine? So it's not exactly a dialogue in the sense that we're not trying to confront Islamic dogma and Christian dogma, because this is just no point. But it's kind of dialogue that happens there would be clarification. And believe me, if you try to explain even to a fellow Christian what Trinity means in terms that would not be polytheism, that would not be modalism, that would not be symbolism, it is not easy. So this kind of dialogue, it's more like explicitation or clarification of what we believe, not to try to find a common ground. You can't reconcile. I mean, at no point any Muslim would accept that God is 3 in 1. I mean, this won't happen. Just like no Christian would ever abandon the idea of Trinity. So the point at that level of dogma is only clarification. And it's extremely interesting to see, for example, I'll give you more practical examples. I feel that I didn't give so many examples in my lecture. So for example, the Muslim asks about Trinity and how it doesn't make it polytheism. And then you have, in Islamic tradition, you have the attributes of God. So God is known to have attributes. He is the magnificent, he's the benevolent, he's the merciful. There is an Islamic discussion within Islamic theology about the ontology of these attributes. Are these attributes just adjectives, or are they attributes of the one God? And sometimes they conflict because God is the merciful, he's the destroyer, he is the longanim, and he is also so how do they reconcile? And if you take them ontologically, then it brings some diversity in God. As soon as you say this, the Muslim would be like, wow, what do you say? Diversity in God? As a Christian, I hear, we are very at ease with the idea that God has in himself diversity. He is relation. In God, there is some life, there is some relation. And then the Muslim it would help him redefine or rethink about what he says about the attributes of God. This is one example. So it doesn't change your dogma, it doesn't change the dogma of the other, but it makes it clearer to yourself and to the other. Like, what do you believe? What is the dogma, for example, of, I don't know, Immaculate Conception? What is it exactly? What does it talk about? Why doesn't it exist in Islam? Because there is no original sin in Islam in the first place. And then you can talk. So this is a dogmatic level. You can talk with a Muslim. This you can do. You don't need to be friends to do this, because you're not sharing your personal subjective faith. You're just sharing facts about dogmas. So this you can do with, like, more easily with someone who knows their faith enough, not just the Muslim barber down the road. I mean, you need to go to a cleric who knows about the tradition. But then at that point, you would be bringing some clarification, not you would not be sharing something, and you would not change anything. I don't know if it's clear, the answer.
Yes, thank you.
Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
May I speak? Yeah. Hello.
Hello?
Yes, Father Peter, you are clear. You can speak.
You should turn your mic on, Father Peter. We can't hear you. Your mic is closed.
Mute. Okay.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you find from your 20-year experience in Egypt that academic dialogue, more the intellectual part of it, or the one-to-one friendship dialogue, which do you find more profitable? And secondly, when I was teaching some years ago in Rome, I had a student from Al-Azhar who was trying to teach me what the real God is and who the Trinity is. Are they taught that type of thing at Al-Azhar?
Thank you for your question.
Yeah.
In Egypt, unfortunately, academics is very, very poor in the public institutions. The only institutions that are quite good are the private ones, but they don't teach so much Islam. If you want to study Islam, you have the big two public universities, Azhar and Dar al-Ulum, and their level is usually very low. So academic dialogue in Egypt is not always so rewarding, except with individuals. Like, you have some scholars are just fantastic, they're amazing, but not as institutions. So when we have, and we do this very often, before the pandemic, we used to have this twice a month, when we have academic discussions, seminars, then we need to pick the good partners, because as institutions, it's usually not so good. Then yes, it is extremely rewarding. It is much easier to do than the one-to-one friendship dialogue. It takes a lot of time. I mean, it takes a lot of time. So academic dialogue is more fruitful, but it takes a lot of study. I mean, in order to enter the field of academic discussions on Islam, it takes a lot of work. Like Sunil knows, it takes a lot of work in order to be able to speak the same language, to have the same basis, and to know the same sources and the same texts and everything. So it is very rewarding, but the entrance ticket is extremely high. So, and friendship it takes lots of time, but it doesn't need training. So it's difficult to compare in the end, I would say, but both are really rewarding. Sorry?
What has been your own experience?
My own experience is both. I've been there for 20 years. I mean, I've had time to meet fantastic scholars academically and friends. So my experience is both. I don't like the official level so much. I've been involved in it for some years and I just don't like it. The symbolic dimension of it and the pictures and everything, I think it's really deceitful. I don't like it so much. So yeah, academic and friendship, for me, these are the two main levels that I've experienced a lot and made me love my life, like in Egypt, basically. Regarding your second question, yes, they study Islam. In Al-Azhar University, they do have classes on Christianity and Judaism and Buddhism and etc. But the curriculum is very poor because it is very much proselytizing, very much so. So, and it's forbidden. I have a friend who teaches Christianity at Al-Azhar, Professor Amr Saleh. He's a very good friend, and he teaches Christianity at Al-Azhar. He himself studied in Angelicum University in Rome and in Urbaniana. So he knows Christianity quite well, but he's an exception. And always the teachers should be Muslim. So he tried once or twice to bring me there so that I could give a lesson and see his students and speak about Christianity, and it was refused. I was not able to do this. So this is a big limit to the system they have. So generally speaking, the level of study at Al-Azhar is very low, generally speaking, especially in human sciences. They are still good in medicine and engineering and stuff like that, translation, but human sciences per se, not so good. And anyway, it's forbidden for a non-Muslim to teach about Christianity or about Judaism. And even we had another friend who studied also Christianity in Al-Azhar, and he used to come to the Priory a lot, and we would give him sources, Christian sources to read. And then his professor prevented him to quote these sources in his work. He said, no, you can only have Muslim sources. Why? Because these Christian sources are biased. So this is, they have a big methodological problem. This is for sure. So I'm not surprised that that student was trying to explain to you what Christianity is. And you're like, come on, guy, I am the Christian here. And I am a theologian. And he would not he would not give you any credit for that. So I can understand, I can relate.
Do they bring them in contact with the classical philosophers that Islam produced in the medieval times?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. But once more, I think the problem here is not ideology. The problem here is academics. It's very low, very low. So, for example, you have, we've had, it was a joke. I mean, we had a common seminar with them, with some PhD students, and we had to discuss some topics. So every time we choose a different topic for the next time, and we present from the Christian perspective and from the Islamic perspective. And so once it was their turn to select a topic, and they said, I said, I would like to work on Ghazali. Imam al-Ghazali, he died in the 12th century. He is a phenomenal author that many people compare to St. Thomas Aquinas. He's a massive author of the Islamic tradition. He's a Sufi himself and a theologian, and he's just massive. So I said, I would like to work on Imam al-Ghazali. And they said, okay, we're going to select texts, and then we send you the texts and you can comment them. And I said, okay, that's fair. Let's do this. So they selected texts from Ghazali and they sent it to me. And I was completely appalled when I received the texts, because they actually thought of a contemporary preacher. They had no idea that this was the name of a 12th century author. So they sent texts of Ghazali, Muhammad al-Ghazali, which is a polemicist, a 20th century polemicist. And I was completely crazy. I was like, are you joking me? So I went to the seminar the next week and I said that. And I said, I was just appalled to realize that we're speaking of medieval theology. And when I say Ghazali, you can't even think of Imam al-Ghazali, Muhyiddin. You immediately think of Muhammad al-Ghazali. And they were confused. This is this bad. It is this bad.
Even professors?
No, PhD students.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's unfortunate.
It is. It is.
Hello, Father John. Thank
Yes.
you for your lecture. I do agree with a lot of things that you said, and I have a few Muslim friends, and I believe that the optimal setting for a dialogue is friendship. But can it be that there is an underlying assumption that the innermost core of each individual has to be something religious? It can be anything, right? It can be concept
Yes, of course.
other things, right?
Of course, yes, of course.
So,
of course it can. I mean, humanity is deep and wide, and yeah, religion is just one dimension, of course.
So what I feel is that in friendship, so religion sometimes becomes a topic which has to be avoided, because most of the people do not feel so much concerned about religion. They have a lot of other concerns, even Muslims and Christians too.
I think this is very true. I think there is lots of uncertainty. Sometimes we feel very weak and uncertain in our own religion and religious tradition. Sometimes you would not want a Muslim friend to point out things in your religion that you don't know and that you don't adhere to, or that you don't understand. So it takes also some courage and knowledge to go to this, because if you don't know anything about your own religion, or if you don't know much about your own religion, and you find someone who is keeps asking you about it, you may feel very insecure. So religion sometimes has to be avoided for that, even in friendship, for that reason. That is very sure. That is very sure.
Thank you, Father.
Thank you. I thank you.
Father John,
Hello.
Thank you for taking this time to give us this talk. I mean, what I gathered from what you spoke of this great joy and this great adventure. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, more or less.
You spoke of this great joy and adventure in speaking about sharing your faith to somebody else, especially on the situation of friendship. So, gathering from all that you said, again, I would like to come back to a very fundamental question, which would be like, what is the ultimate end of dialogue, or what is the final purpose of dialogue? Is it merely a subjective experience for me in sharing the faith, or is it more than that? In the sense, is it to lead the other person to to understand the person of Christ, and to lead that person to Christ? I mean, if we do not have that underlying motive in sharing our faith, it kind of seems just as an individual experience or a personal satisfaction. So, in that case, would it be merely enough to speak only on what we agree on, but rather go more deeply and maybe dialogue more about what we disagree on, wouldn't that be more fruitful if that is the underlying motive? Thank you.
Wow, that's a nice question. I think we can answer both at a human level. The aim of dialogue is just peace and harmony and reinforce our humanity in cooperation, in joint projects, in understanding, in mutual love and compassion. And this is already a lot. If we can do this, everyone at their own levels, religious leaders, academics, friends, colleagues, couples, if we can do it, then it is already a lot to our horizontal humanity fabric, really very big. For me, I've discovered another dimension to dialogue, which is to explore God and to explore his depth, his mercy, his tenderness, his omnipotence, the fact that he loves every single human, whatever their creeds, whatever their deeds, whatever, I mean, it's, and when you see it, when you know, you can know it in your head, you read it in books and it's something you believe and it's something, but once you've experienced it through dialogue, through meeting actual people, some of them have broken lives, some of them have complete crazy creeds, some of them have very sad histories, and God is there, and they tell you, and they show you how God is there. Like, you know, as a preacher, we cannot separate between teaching and our own life. It's something that and when you see this in others people's lives, how much it is true that God is there, holding everyone, every single one in his hand. It's absolutely moving. And you can't do this outside of dialogue. You can't do this unless you go outside of yourself and meet people and talk to them and listen to them and see how God acts in their lives. I hope as Dominicans, as preachers, I hope you've already seen this in your fellow Christians, believers. I hope you already know this. I hope you've seen that. But when you see this in atheists, in Buddhists, in Muslims, in people like so far, you would never have thought that God is there, closer to them than their own lives. This is amazing. And this, it happens through dialogue. What do you think?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, the providence, the mercy of God over all peoples. That is what he was speaking about. And irrespective of what they believe, irrespective of who they are or where they are from. Now, as Christians, as firm believers in Christ, and wouldn't it be a sort of duty within ourselves, maybe even if they, at least from our point of view, if they do not understand who it is that this person, God, who is providing for them, who is taking care of them, who is there their life, out of love for this God, wouldn't it be a duty from our part to lead them to know that God? I mean, to show them that this is who is actually taking care of you. This is who you're experiencing when you're speaking about this experience of God. I mean, if we do not lead to that, wouldn't it be a disservice to that person? Because if anybody who wants something else, point them to the good, point them to what would bring happiness in their lives. Surely, knowing God in a deeper way would bring all of us greater happiness. And so should we really stop at just agreeing to disagree with each other, or saying, okay, that is your dogma, and I'm okay with that, this is my dogma, but shouldn't we go beyond to show them that this is what we need to?
Oh, this is beautiful. I mean, yeah, and it makes you human, more human. Wow.
Or maybe we can have another last question if anyone has any question to ask.
Father, do the Muslim Imams, do they have a unified teaching about their faith?
Absolutely not. No, they don't. Absolutely not. This is something which is very much linked to what Islam is, especially Sunni Islam. So there is no curriculum, there is no core. The only thing that is required is to know the Quran by heart. This is the only thing. But it doesn't make someone an imam. And then the problem, I think Sunni Islam is very comparable to Protestantism, especially evangelical Protestantism. It means that anyone can buy a piece of land, build a mosque, put their name on it and say, this is my mosque, and whoever wants to come, comes. And it happens. So from this side, it is very much like evangelical Christianity. One guy has money, build a church, put his name on it and says, this is the church of, Mount Zion, and you're most welcome. So this is what it is for Sunni Islam, especially. Then this is the basis. Then you have each country tries to organize religion as they can. Some countries, for example, in Egypt, there is a ministry for religion. And that ministry organizes every year an entrance exam to select the imams. So there is a series of questions that you have to answer, and you have a number of positions, and then they will hire, for example, 200, 300, 400. So it's the government who does it. This is the way it works in Egypt and in most Islamic countries. I don't know in India, for example, how does it work? How does the Islamic community or the Islamic communities, how do they select their imams? I don't know. For example, in France, we have a problem because Islam is not an official religion in France. We don't have an official religion in the first place. So Muslim, they should organize themselves alone. So, and there are lots of conflicts between them because depending on the country of origin, depending on the money they have, depending on many things, they proclaim themselves to be imams. So this in France, this is the situation. And so anybody can do it. I don't know how it is in India. It's interesting. Maybe you could do some research about that. How do the different communities select their own imams? Is there a curriculum for them or not? In Egypt, I said we have a ministry that organizes religion, but you still have private mosques. So what is a private mosque? It's someone like, Sunil buys a piece of land, puts his name on it and says, this is Sunil's mosque, and that's it. And the government cannot say anything about it. It is by law, like he had the right to do it. But then imagine that Sunil's mosque becomes very famous. Sunil is a good preacher. And then he gathers lots of crowds every Friday. Then maybe, and he begins to speak and to preach crazy things. So maybe at some point, the government is going to send the police to seize the mosque, or they're going to put him in jail, or if they can't, because he became very famous, so they would try to impose a sermon on Friday. Say, Sunil, you're very famous, but you're speaking crazy things, so please, this is the sermon for next Friday. So Sunil will either read that sermon on next Friday, or he will refuse and then begin to fight with the government. So there is no centralized organization, and even the ministry doesn't have the full power and exclusivity to organize religion in Egypt. Once more, this is very different from one country to another, and I don't know how it works in India. I have no idea. I've been in Pakistan and I've seen how it works. It is quite similar to Egypt, but Pakistan is an Islamic country, so it's not a big surprise that it works a bit like Egypt. You have a religious government, a religious ministry, plus private mosques, plus the big tariqas, the big Sufi congregations like the Deobandis, and like they have their own networks of mosques. But in India, I really have no idea. Does this answer your question?
Yes, Father, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a simple question?
Sure.
The last. Yeah. How can I be true to my faith without being false to others?
How can I be true to my faith
without being false to others?
Honestly, I myself don't see any contradiction. Like if you're true to, what does it mean to be true to your faith? Like you don't want to hide it. You don't want to, I think that my experience is that from, at least in Egypt, what Muslims prefer is someone who is clearly a Christian and not just like hiding things. Like, the more straightforward you are, the better. So what is it? I would be interested to know, for example, in what situation you think that you are betraying your faith. What, for example, like someone is asking you something that you don't want to do, or what is it? What would that be?
I mean, what do you call literal practice of the scripture or anything, faith.
Okay.
I don't.
Okay, so what it would be like, for example, you would not go to mass, not because you think your neighbor would be angry, something like this?
No, something like it just means like sticking literally to the letters or the words, the teachings.
And that's what we do. I don't get the point. Like, that's what we do in Egypt. I don't think we are less Dominicans, less Christians, less anything. We are what we are, and we say it, and people know it. And when they come to us, we don't hide. Sunil, I mean, do we hide anything, or do we? For example, maybe I can think of an example. I don't know if this answers your question, but for example, we used to have seminars with students from Al-Azhar. So they would come to our place once, and once we would go to their place at the university. So when they come to our place, we offer the food, but we decided not to share because we don't want them to be offended, and we don't want is because there is beer in this place. So usually we do drink beer, but when they come, we don't serve beer. Is this kind of, so do you think I'm betraying my Christian faith when I decide not to present, not to serve beer? Is it this kind of questions you have in mind, or what is it exactly? When do you hide, or when do you betray your Christian faith because of the other? This is that question I'm not sure to understand.
Okay, no, it is not with regard to that. It is like, what can I say? Like there are some scriptural passages which are, if we take it very literally,
yes,
what do you call, we may disregard our own faith or something in this context, like.
I mean, nothing comes to my mind, but when you say very literally, I would say this is already an indication that maybe there's a problem here, because I don't think anything should be taken very literally. Everything should be taken with the spirit of love and freedom in mind. And so I don't think it is wise in general. I'm trying to be a bit more general. I don't think it is wise in general to read any text very literally, and especially the Bible. I think we should read it with a spirit of sons and daughters, spirit of freedom, spirit of joy, spirit of generosity, and I think so. I'm not sure if I got your question right.
Yeah, you got me. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So I think we shall end our question answer session. So Brother John, thank you very much for sparing your time with us and giving us this valuable lecture.
Thank you, Sunil.
I just asked you, and you were ever ready to, oblige yourself. So thanks a lot.
Wow. Of course, I'm happy to share with my brothers and sisters.
Yeah. I'm sure brothers and sisters are very happy to listen to you. And
thank you.
I mean, it was quite engaging because they were asking questions and very important questions.
Thank you.
So we could have some more lectures together, I guess.
Inshallah. Thank you so much,
yeah,
Sunil.
Inshallah.
I wish you all the best. And please, if you want, Sunil, you can share my email to everyone if they want to send questions. I would be delighted to answer them.
Sure. So thank you, and thank you all the brothers and sisters for taking part in this lecture very actively. So we could have another meeting together. So thank you very much, and have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
And Khuda Hafiz.
Thanks to everyone. Good night.
So good night. Thank you.
Shubhratri.
Thank you, Sunil.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sunil.
Yeah.
Meeting you all. Okay, now.
Chalo. Okay.